and she was like, "Oh, hey, Dad, Jake's writing some songs," and he was like, "Cool, I want to hear one." And I was like, "Yeah, one day I'll play one for you." He goes, "No, no, right now, I want to hear one. I've got a guitar in the other room." And I was like, "Oh wow."
Thanks for doing this, Jake. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm Adam, by the way, and our podcast is about you, your journey in music, and we'll talk about the new record you have coming out on Friday as well.
Amazing.
Cool, cool. First off, where were you born and raised?
Well, taking all the way back to Fayetteville, Arkansas. Yeah, I was born and raised in Fayetteville in Northwest Arkansas. And yeah, I lived there until I graduated college from the University of Arkansas, which is in Fayetteville. So
Oh,
uh,
wow.
yeah, I was a thoroughbred.
Wow, that's interesting. So you went to college there, everything.
Did the whole thing. Yeah, 22
Oh,
years.
oh my gosh. You must have liked it there, obviously.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's a beautiful place. It's such a fun, honestly, since leaving there, I realized how great of a place it was to grow up. And it's just such a fun town because it's a small town in a lot of ways, but you still have like a lot of access to a lot of like modern
Mhm.
city kind of amenities. So it's like you are in a small town, but at the same time, you're not in like the middle of nowhere. So
Sure.
yeah, it was really cool. Cause I mean, like there's a lot of like big corporations like Walmart and Tyson Chicken and JB Hunt, and like a bunch of different like businesses that are headquartered in Northwest Arkansas. So you like have access to a lot of really cool things, but it's still a pretty tight knit community, which is
That's
really
a,
cool.
is it more of like a college town? I don't know anything about it. It's, if there's the big
Yeah,
colleges there, right?
yeah, the college is there, and it definitely is kind of it's the heart and soul of the town, I would say for sure. But um, but yeah, it's not one of those college towns when it's like during the summer, it feels like a ghost town. Like it's still definitely like thriving and has a really strong community.
Okay, that's
Uh,
cool.
but when college is in session, it's definitely full of a lot of life and electricity. And like, the Razorbacks are our team. We don't have any professional teams in Arkansas. So the Hogs are, it is
Are
it's
everything?
heart and soul of the state. And it's really fun, honestly, that everyone's kind of, unified on one thing.
That is cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, are you in LA now?
I'm in LA now. Yeah.
Okay,
I've been here
quite
for,
different.
oh, it's totally different. Yeah. It like couldn't be more different. And
Sure.
I love it here for a lot of the, in the ways that it is different, but also I still love Arkansas. It's such a great
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, I'm originally from San Diego in Southern California, and then I moved. My family and I just recently moved to Nashville, and we're like pretty south Nashville, like in the suburbs, and it
Yeah.
feels more like that. Not small town, but it's like the pace of life is just so much slower. Like people like aren't as much in a hurry, and I like grew up, 35 years of my life
Mm.
there and 36 years of my life, whatever. And it's just everything's like go, 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 go. And like here it's just like, it's all right. You can breathe. You can you can slow down a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's something definitely beautiful about that I think I try to incorporate into my life here.
Mhm.
And it's easy to get caught up in the current of
Sure.
this place. It's easy.
Totally. Well, how did you get into music?
So originally, I when I was a kid, I saw this movie called That Thing You Do.
Okay.
And
I know the movie.
that movie changed my life. Like I wanted to be the drummer, I wanted to be Shades. And so that Christmas, I'm like 6 years old at the time, mind you. That Christmas, I was like, I got to get a drum set for Christmas. And so Santa delivered. I got a drum set. And,
Amazing.
you know, my parents, like, bless their heart, they had to put up with me just kind of working it out. But ultimately, they found out pretty quick that, like, okay, he's got a decent sense of rhythm. Like, he's not just horrible at this. And so, like, they hired a guy from around town who like played drums to come over and like teach me some technique and stuff like that. But that was kind of how I got started. I just loved playing the drums, totally a hobby. It was never anything that I took seriously at all, but started out playing the drums and then started playing drums uh in like little, junior high garage bands and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And started playing like in church in the church band. And that was kind of when I started realizing like I was decent at the drums, and then ultimately I'm giving you like the the
No,
long
I love. That's what I want to know. That's cool with you.
basically, like, the drums were always fun, and they were really I got really into, like, the emo scene, like,
Oh
screamo
yeah,
emo, and
I love that.
the drumming of that kind of music was so impressive,
Hmm.
and it was kind of the heart and soul of those bands and those songs. You had, like, the double kick pedal that was just going nuts, and there's
Hmm.
all these complicated rhythms and breakdowns and half times and stuff like that. It's a really fun style of drumming, and then when I was 16, I discovered John Mayer for the first time, and I heard Continuum, the album,
Uh huh.
and I mean, I said that thing you do changed my life, like, that legit changed my life. I sold the drums, bought a guitar, and I was like, "I wanna be John Mayer." And then after, like, 6 months of trying to learn how to play the guitar, I was like, "I will never be John Mayer." He's a fantastic guitar player, like, once in a generation. And so I kind of gave up the dream of like being a guitar hero and started really kind of latching on to his songwriting
Mhm,
and started becoming kind of like a huge uh admirer of the craft. And he kind of was the gate that led me into this world of singer-songwriters, the
mhm,
Bob Dylan's of the world, Jackson Brown, Coldplay was a huge band, around that
mhm.
same time, and so, like, I really dove deep into that world, and, um, although I wasn't writing songs at the time, I was studying the songwriters that I loved and was a really, just such an admirer of the craft.
Mhm. Yeah, that's interesting. I was wondering when you're talking about the emo and the double kick and the drums, and I'm like thinking his music doesn't really sound like that. So John Mayer was the key to changing that sound a
Yeah,
bit.
it really, there was a lot of, like, emotional energy that was in that, like, emo music, and I think that's why
Hmm.
it caught on so hard was that, like,
Sure.
felt it, and that's, rock and roll is always gonna have a place, but I think I connected with it from the energy, that it kinda brought out, but then ultimately, like, when I heard the storytelling that was in the singer-songwriter side of music,
Mhm.
I was like, "Oh, this feels like home," and I've
Sure.
kinda never gotten over it.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about the emo bands, like lyrics, and if you break them down into acoustic versions, when they would do that, I mean, there's some real like depth to those
Oh,
bands and those songs too.
yeah, and like a really like it's funny you say stripping it down. Like if you strip down some of those songs and play them on a piano, like the melody is really beautiful too.
Hmm.
As
Sure.
well as the lyric, but like stuff you don't really pay attention to when you're getting yelled at. But then when you strip it down, it's like, oh, that's really pretty.
Totally. When did you just, I mean, you have a fantastic voice. I was watching your most recent little clip on your Instagram, and I'm just like blown away how good you are. And then one person in the comments is like, I've legit like listened to this 11 times. And I was thinking to myself, I think I've just listened to it about 10 or 11 times too. But
Wow. Thank
um, yeah, man, your voice is so great. Like, did you, when you were doing the singer songwriter thing in the beginning, did you know that you could sing that well? Like, did you just have good pitch?
I think I always had a sense of pitch, yeah. And once I honestly started like not to just beat the dead horse with the John Mayer thing, but like I had about a 15-minute drive to school every day.
Uh-huh.
And I had this Jeep when I turned 16 that the CD player broke and Continuum was stuck in the CD console. So like it was the only thing I could listen to. It was either
At least
Continuum
it was a good record.
I know, right? It's like my favorite
Could have
album.
been worse.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I just listened to that like every day. And the way I kind of like learned that I had a sense of pitch and could sing a little bit was I was just singing along with John
Mhm.
and tried to match like his every move, every little run, every nuance and everything. And that was kind of how I figured it out a little bit. But then I started singing a lot like in the church bands and stuff like that. Like I
Okay.
singing and stuff. And so I started singing on a microphone, which is a totally different experience.
Mhm.
And then um really my like vocal boot camp, fast forward, 5 years, was when I started singing in a studio. And like I
Okay.
could hear it back in real time in headphones, all of the imperfections, all the things where, it might have felt like it felt good coming out of my throat. I've never
Hmm.
explained this. Sounds weird to say. It felt good, but I didn't like the way it sounded. And so I started kind of learning like, okay, I don't like the way my voice sounds when I do this, but I do like when I do this kind of a thing. So I just started kind of like learning uh technique that way just from singing in the studio every day. And yeah,
What
just kind of doing it that way.
when did you get that opportunity? You said it was a few years later. Were you already writing songs and you were taking them into the studio at this point, or?
Yeah, so I went to college at the University of Arkansas, didn't study music,
Okay.
but was just studying was studying marketing and advertisement. My wife and I joke about this all the time because my major sounded really complicated. It was journalism with an emphasis on advertising and public relations and a minor in marketing. So it sounds like a lot more than it was, but
Well,
essentially,
everything you would need for to be a musician, essentially. I mean, you need to market
yeah,
yourself, you need to
I
sell
mean,
yourself.
you would think so, except that marketing technology has changed drastically since media. And so I was
Sure.
sending like, email blasts. That's what I was,
Right.
and that doesn't really happen anymore. It's just
Yeah.
like I've had to really kind of just roll with it. But I started writing songs my junior year of college. I had such a, like I said, I was such a fan and such an admirer of the craft that
Hmm.
I think there was a huge fear that I carried of like, I don't want to be bad at this. I feel like I know that I want to try to write songs at some point in my life,
Hmm.
but if I'm bad at it, I'm going to be so disappointed and sad. So like
Sure.
I just put it off as long as possible. And then halfway through college, I went to this music festival and I saw all these artists up there singing and playing, and I was just like, man, this is what I want to do. Like I gotta try. And so I went back and I was in my dorm room and I just started writing a song. And I was like, even if this thing is terrible, I'm just gonna power through it. And then I just gotta try. And I wrote it and I got to the other side of it and I was like, you know what? I actually like this. This is good. And I truly just have never stopped. But I wrote that song and then I wrote about 6 more songs. And then I was in college. One of my best friends started dating a girl who was from Nashville. Her
Okay.
dad owned a studio in Franklin, and he came to town one weekend to visit. And she was like, "Oh, hey, Dad, Jake's writing some songs," and he was like, "Cool, I want to hear one." And I was like, "Yeah, one day I'll play one for you." He goes, "No, no, right now, I want to hear one. I've got a guitar in the other room." And I was like, "Oh wow." So I literally
No
we walked,
pressure.
no, yeah, exactly. We walked to the next room and like on the spot, he's like, "All right." He sits down in an armchair. It was a hilarious moment. He sits down, like crosses his legs, is like, "What you got?" So I
Oh,
sit
man.
there and I play him these 2 songs that I had written, and he was like, "You know what, man? You can use my studio for free anytime you want." And I was,
Wow.
wow, okay, cool. And so about 6 months later, I hit him up and I was like, "Hey, summer break, like, were you serious? Can I actually come and record?" And he was like, "Yep. I'll give you 5 days at the end of the summer. You and our intern can make a record. So have at it." And I was like, "All
Wow.
right, sweet." So I
He
got him
kind of
picked up.
validated your songwriting, obviously, in that
Yeah,
moment, I would
yeah,
think.
yeah, he definitely did. And because he was just like, I really think like I like what you're doing here. I'd love to see what it sounds like when you actually record it. And I was like, great, I've never been to a studio before. Let's do it. And
Wow.
and then so fast forward, I go to the studio in Franklin, Tennessee. That studio's not there anymore.
Oh,
'Cause
that's right around where I live. That's where I
yeah,
moved to. Yeah. So
yeah.
when I was talking about the smallish town vibe, not really a small town, but I mean, it's in a sense, it's slower than LA.
Oh, sure, yeah. But yeah, I was in Franklin and we spent 5 days and I recorded 5 songs in 5 days, top to bottom, all the pieces, parts, everything. And it was just a gauntlet of a week. And
I can
then
imagine.
yeah, and then a couple months later I was like, "All right, I'm going to put this little EP up on iTunes." And I didn't think literally didn't think anything was going to happen. I
Mhm.
thought like my mom and a couple close friends would buy it and listen to it, and that was going to kind of be like my I got to be in the studio moment for my life.
Yeah.
And then that EP just kind of caught some traction and got in like the the iTunes top 5 chart for the singer-songwriter chart and caught in the Billboard Heat Seeker chart for
Jeez.
Eastern America, and it was just this crazy thing of being like, oh wow, like people are listening to this music and like people are connecting to it. And then I had these like A&R people from record labels hitting me up and all this stuff, and I was just like, oh, like I guess I'm gonna do music now. Like
Wow.
I
Was that
had
over? Sorry, go ahead.
no, I basically was like, I had no idea. Like I loved it, but I never thought it could actually like be something that I did as a career. But then when this album like or this EP started catching on a bit, I was just like, maybe I should like give this a shot. Like maybe I should take this seriously. But anyway, I cut you off. What were you saying?
No. I was just gonna ask, was that kind of overwhelming? I mean, you were still what? You're about to be your senior year of college at this point, and your record's
Yeah,
doing really well.
I literally was in my senior year, and you know, I was trying to figure out like, what am I doing with my life? Do I need to start applying for jobs and all this stuff? And I had started like doing internships at like marketing companies and stuff. And then yeah, the album like started doing well, and I was just like, I think this is what I should try to do. And I was like talking to my parents about it, and they were like, should you like do this? Like, should you go for this? And I was like, I maybe. And anyway, then I got connected to this guy named David Hodges, who's a Grammy award winning songwriter, producer, was in the band Evanescence.
Mm-hmm.
And he calls me up one day, and he was like, hey man, friend of mine sent me your EP, and I listened to it, and I had to call you because I think you really got something special here, and I want to work with you. I want to write with you. And I was
Wow.
like, well, I mean, I've never co-written before, but yeah, sure, let's give it a shot. And he was like, cool, come out to LA next month and let's give it a shot and see how it goes. And so I flew out to LA the next month, and we wrote a couple songs in a couple days, and we just really hit it off. And then he was like, man, you know, this was kind of a tryout, but I want you to, when you graduate in 6 months, I want you to move to LA and start working with me. And I want to kind of like show you how to have a career in this business. Cause he was like,
Wow.
I think you're going to be a really successful artist, but I also think that you can write songs and produce songs for other people like I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to teach you how to do that. And I was just like, sign me up, let's do this. And so
God.
he actually tried to convince me to drop out of school. He was like,
I was gonna say, I'm pretty shocked that he was like, you know what, you go ahead and graduate and
no, he
then
told
come
me,
back and see me.
yeah, Hodges was like, so I mean, you're gonna drop out, right? And like, start doing this. And I was like, dude, I've got 6 months left, like before I graduate, and I've already put 3.5 years in. Like, I might as well just finish this. But I'll be writing
Right.
songs the whole time, so I'll like have an album ready to go when I move out. And he was like, yeah, cool, totally. And so yeah, that next semester I just like structured my class schedule to where I had 2 days a week where I didn't have any class. I just had class Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Mhm.
And Tuesday, Thursday, I would just spend all day in my room writing songs and like just kind of trying to figure it out. Like I didn't have any framework of like how it worked or studying. I didn't know any of the math.
Mhm.
I just knew what felt good to me and what didn't feel good. And I knew that my boot camp would just be repetition. And so I was just going to keep doing it as much as I could. And anyway, I graduated, moved to LA that summer,
Mhm.
and then have been doing it ever since.
Wow. And is that did you put out Silhouettes and Sand? Is that the record that you wrote during that
Yeah,
time period?
that's the record I wrote during that time period. And it's interesting because I had at the time I was releasing music under this band name called Tossing Copper.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Like, okay.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. And because at the time, like when I made that first EP back, like my very first one, I didn't think. I mean, this is not me being like falsely humble. Like I was genuinely like, I don't think I'm good enough on my own to like be successful. So I'm gonna make a band. but I don't have
Okay.
any band members yet. So I'm just gonna create the band name, release the music, and then I'll find the band after the fact. And then when it started doing well, I was kind of like, well, maybe I should be a solo artist, but already have this band name. So like maybe I can be like Bon Iver or City in Color, where it's like it's
Uh-huh.
one guy, but
It's
it's a band name, and it's like
sure.
weird like front. And so I get to LA, Hodges and I make the album Silhouettes in Sand, and then I sat on that album for like a year because I was like, well, I don't know if I want to do the tossing copper thing. I want to be myself. I want to kind of like lean more into like pop singer songwriter rather than like the super folksy singer songwriter, because at the time that like trend was kind of dying, and I was like, oh, I don't want to like be holding on to this,
Right, right.
you know what I mean? And so I kind of didn't know what to do, so I just kind of let it sit there for a year, and then I ended up putting it out in 2015. And but at the time, so when I moved to town, I knew I had a lot to learn, especially on the production side of things. Like I had never even seen Pro Tools, and so Hodges was just like, sit next to me for 6 weeks and just watch. And then in 6 weeks' time, I'm gonna let you sit in the chair, and I'm gonna make you do all of my demos. I was,
Wow.
yeah,
How amazing is it that he let you, I mean,
yeah,
to hear just your EP and say, you know what, I'm gonna teach you to produce. Not only like I think you're a rad singer-songwriter and I'll have you, put a record out or whatever, but to like
yeah,
really invest that much into you. That's so amazing.
yeah, man. I mean, I am so grateful to him for how much he invested in me and believed in me, and really, because I slowed down his process like a ton at the beginning. Like he would be sitting there going like, nope, 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 not right. And I'm just like, man, damn it. Like I gotta figure this out. And then eventually like I started getting better and better and better. But he was really patient and stuck with me, and yeah, I owe him so much. But it's interesting, when I got there and was working with him, I kind of, without being fully aware of it, sort of got kind of pulled into the deep end of writing and producing for other people all the time.
Okay.
And so, which I loved, and I learned so much, but I got like 2 years into that and was like, wait, I haven't written a song for me in like 2 years. Like this is great, this is fun, but ultimately like I want to be the artist. Like I want to be the one singing these songs, and like that's why I got into this in the first place. And so I started realizing like, okay, if I'm gonna do this, like I've got to really kind of put my heels in the ground and really pursue this, because when you get into the writing and production world, it kind of sort of turns into golden handcuffs. uh, like
Mhm.
it is paying your bills, and that's great. And especially in the music industry, it's like anything you can do to pay your bills, you
Right.
got to do it.
Yeah.
It's
Follow
like, come on. Yeah,
that.
exactly. And so I definitely tried to, it was hard to kind of shift gears and walk away from that, but I knew that I needed to do it. And so I really started like slowly but surely like cutting back uh my sessions for other people, and really started focusing on writing music for myself, and built up a collection of these songs for me. And
Mhm.
then um I feel like I'm skipping over so much, but I basically, once I got to the point where I had a decent, like an album's worth of songs for myself,
Mhm.
I decided like, okay, I'm gonna release this music as my own name, as Jake Scott. And instead of releasing these songs all at once like an album, I'm just gonna release one song every month and see if that works. And because I feel like, for where I'm at as an artist, I don't really have a huge fan base or anything yet, so it's not like the world is clamoring for my album.
Mhm.
But if I can release one song at a time, just over and over and over and over again, then eventually people will start to catch on. They'll find the old songs, they'll find the new songs, and then hopefully this thing can kind of start to snowball. And I started doing that January of 2018, and I did it for 3 years straight.
Wow.
of just a song every month, and I'm so grateful that I did that. I'm so glad I chose to do it that way. And yeah, I did it all the way up until January of this year, 2021.
And
And then
is that when you started the actual record that you have coming out?
yes, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, at the end of 2020, I really started to feel I felt myself really craving a longer story. You know, I wanted to be able to have the ability to tell a longer story than just one song would allow. So I wanted to kind of like have, you know, a body of work where each song was kind of a different chapter in the same book, so to speak.
Mhm.
And I realized like I had all these ideas and these concepts that were kind of like bubbling up, and I was like, oh, I think this feels like an EP, or it either feels like an album or an EP or something. And I, you know, started really kind of thinking about it. It was scary because like the song a month thing had kind of become my shtick. You know, that was kind
Mhm.
of what I was like known for. And so I told my managers, I was like, guys, I think I've got a record that I want to make. So I think I'm gonna close up shop on the song a month thing at the beginning of 2021. And they were like, all right, let's do it. So I
Wow.
started writing it um in September of 2020. And I was writing those songs kind of in the background because I was still releasing other songs and was writing this record. And yeah, now it's coming out on Friday.
Wow. Wow. Was there a particular song that you saw when you were doing like the one song a month that really, kind of caught fire, or was it kind of like a gradual?
It was
Uh,
really gradual at first. Yeah, it took so like the first 2 years straight was like really slow incremental growth. Like it would, you know, if you're just looking at the metric of like your monthly listeners on Spotify, which is so dumb, but people look at that number, you know,
of course. Yeah.
silly. Um, but like, you know, if I was watching that, like I started the whole project with like 50,000 monthly
Hmm.
listeners on Spotify from my old stuff. So there was already like a little bit of a pre-existing
Hmm.
uh, group. And then, you know, it would go up like 5 to 10,000 after this song. And then it would drop 5 to 10,000 after that. And then it would rise and fall and rise and fall. And it was slowly but surely kind of climbing up. And I think I ended the first year at like 150,000.
Wow.
Uh, so it was like it grew, but it wasn't like
A
mind blowing.
million and a half. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
it
it.
wasn't like a lot, but it was enough for me to be like, okay, this is working. I'm going to keep going because I had only
Sure.
really planned to do it for 1 year
Hmm.
and then kind of evaluate from there. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, the numbers are definitely like growing, so I'm just going to keep releasing a song a month, and then just kept that going for a whole nother year. And the last song I released in 20, no, second to last song that I released in 2019 was a song called Favorite T-shirt.
Hmm.
Um, that song was definitely a big turning point for me because at that when I right before I released Favorite T-shirt, I was like just about to hit 1 million monthly listeners. And then that was the first song that ever got on like a Spotify editorial playlist and got on
Oh, sure.
New Music Friday. Um,
Wow.
and I have to say that that did kind of trampoline affect a lot of stuff. So it took me 2 years to get to 1 million, and then it took me like 40 days to get to 2 million. So it was like
Wow.
it was very exponential from there. And then in 2020, you know, I think we all had grand
High
plans
hopes.
to do a lot of things, and I just signed on with like at the end of 2019, like I signed on with a booking agent, and I was like, all right, let's go tour the world, like let's do this thing. And I did actually go on a little tour in February of 2020.
Okay. Was it
Right.
your first time like really playing
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that? Okay.
Yeah. I had played little shows before,
Sure.
but this was definitely my first time doing like a proper tour. And it was only 5 shows, but it was like, it was sold out and it was
Amazing.
so fun. Like it was so intoxicating. And I was just like, I want to do this all the time. Let's go. And like, it was incredible. And then, you know, my last show was, I think, the 28th of February. And I fly back and we've got all these grand plans. And and gonna go back on the road in May and this like nationwide tour, and then obviously 2 weeks later the whole world shuts down. But
Oh man.
yeah, but then
So,
I kept releasing a song every month and did it that way. So
oh, you did. So you continued this song a month throughout 2020.
yeah,
Oh yeah, because that you said 2021 is when you decided on the record.
yeah. Well, I was
Okay.
kind of like, it was really sad and disappointing, obviously, for everybody. I'm not acting
Uh-huh.
like in a vacuum there, but basically once quarantine started, I was kind of like, well, I guess I'll just keep doing what I've been doing, and I'll
Uh-huh.
just keep writing songs and producing songs in my home studio, and then just keep putting them out online and see just like keep trying to build this thing up and keep the ball rolling. And so I was very fortunate in that regard that quarantine didn't affect my day-to-day life very much, because like
Mhm.
touring hadn't become like a major part of my life yet,
Sure.
and so I was just kind of keep the
Keep
ball rolling.
doing
Yeah,
what you're doing. Yeah, and
yeah.
what was working, obviously.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was fun, and I'm so glad I did it. But I'm very, very excited for this record to come out this week.
That is amazing. I'm curious, was it hard to stay, inspired throughout the quarantine? I've talked to artists that either were like, yeah, it was easy, I was super inspired, or like, no, I was so bored with my house and the mundane aspect of
Yeah,
life
I
at that
mean,
point.
I think both. I think I had waves of inspiration, and then I had weeks where I was just like, what is life right now? Like, what am I doing? I don't have anything to write about because I'm not able to do anything other than just sit
Right.
in this room. And so yeah, I think both. But luckily it was just kind of like spending a few years on the other side of the curtain just writing songs every single day. You just kind of it sort of becomes like a muscle, and you
Mhm.
just have to keep working it out, and the more you do it, the I guess easier it gets to just keep going.
Yeah, sure, for sure. With the new record, Goldenboy, did you like when you were writing those songs? You said you started writing them in what, September or so for
Yeah,
the new album.
yeah.
Um, were those songs that you had started thinking like, okay, like you still have what, 4 months or so on your like a song a month up until 2020?
Mhm.
Did you have those like 4 songs done and you're like, okay, I'm gonna start writing a record? Like, did you have a record in mind when it started? Like, tell me like what was the shift there, and
Yeah,
how did you decide what was going to go on the first or the monthly song and what was going to go make the record?
yeah, good question. um I think, if I'm remembering right, I had a few songs kind of in the hopper
Okay.
that I had slotted for the rest of 2020. So I kind of knew which ones were like, okay, these are going to be singles that I'm just going to release this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a pretty specific concept that I was writing for the Goldenboy EP. So I kind of knew as I was uh I the way I write songs is kind of I call it the crock pot method, which is stupid. But basically like I have anywhere from 2 to 6 ideas going at any given time. I very rarely sit down and finish a song in a day.
Oh,
Um
interesting.
so I'll sit down for like 30 45 minutes at a time, and if I find like a piece of a melody that I really like, and I'll kind of work that one out and like record it on a voice memo, and then I'll walk away and listen back to it while I'm driving or while I'm like on a run or something like that. And if it's something that is continues to stick out to me, or it's like, ooh, that's really good, I'm going to finish that one, then I'll put a couple stars by it in my voice memo, and I'll make sure that I come back to it. And I'll write kind of in 30-minute to 3-hour bursts, like that. But then sometimes you sit down, you're like in a writing session with other people, and it's like, okay, well, for the next 5 hours we're going to finish a song. And so sometimes I'll bring some of those little pieces of ideas. But all that to say, I had some ideas going in the crock pot that I knew were Goldenboy songs.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a couple ideas that were like, okay, these don't feel like they would fit into Goldenboy, but I do like them, and I do want to, release them separately.
Okay, no, that makes sense. With Goldenboy, it's not a concept record, right? It's just
Yeah, no, it
ideas. Oh,
is.
it is. Tell me the
Yeah.
concept. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, yeah. So the whole basically the concept elevator pitch has become that in quarantine, like all of us kind of I had to really slow down and it forced me to do a lot of kind of soul searching and take a long hard look at myself and my life and um, I started doing a lot of therapy as well and I just started noticing some patterns in my life that I wanted to grow in and I wanted to kind of get past in my life, just kind of recurring patterns that felt unhealthy that I wanted to kind of get some clarity on and some healing in. And over the course of doing therapy and kind of understanding parts of myself, I started seeing that there was kind of a piece of my personality that had developed over the years that um, kind of learned how to be a shapeshifter and be whatever version of myself I had to be to win the love and approval and acceptance of whoever was in front of me at the time. And that part of me, my therapist and I nicknamed the Golden Boy. And ultimately, the Golden Boy was really good at uh, gaining people's, acceptance and love, but was very afraid of letting anyone really close. And so I started noticing that the people who were closest to me in my life um, always kind of felt like they were a bit at an arm's distance from me, or they never felt like they got the real me or like the full me because there was a kind of a level that they couldn't get past and that I couldn't open up fully to
Mhm.
anybody. And so ultimately, this part of me was holding me back as an adult. As a young man, it gave me a sense of safety, but as an adult in real relationships, it was holding me back from the people closest to me and keeping me stuck in a lot of ways. And so this album, this EP is really kind of the process of becoming aware of this, coming to terms with myself, and then ultimately having a turning point where I'm able to let go of this false self called the Golden Boy to be able to kind of like walk into whoever my authentic self is.
I love that. I think that people are. I mean, I can definitely relate to that. I'm sure a lot of people can. That's a fascinating story. I can't wait
Thank you.
to hear
Yeah.
the record. That's amazing.
Yeah, thanks, man. And each song on the record is kind of a different way the Golden Boy would show up in my life and kind of manifest in my life. And so uh yeah, I'm really excited. It's also kind of scary because it's a very vulnerable
Oh, sure. I
record
mean,
for me.
yeah, you're really putting yourself out there, especially.
Yeah.
I mean, explaining it like that too. I mean, now yeah, it's your life. That's exactly what you're going through and how you were able to manage it. Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah. Thank you, man. I really
I
appreciate
love that. Yeah. I wasn't sure. I didn't realize it was gonna go that deep because I was, you did the whole Golden Boy donut campaign. So I was like, is this gonna go like left? Like, and then you're like telling me this very like deep, like it makes total sense. And it's just like this beautiful storyline. Like, how did you even get involved with the donut thing? How did
Oh,
that even?
the donut thing is so funny. So the donut passion is not an act. Like I am obsessed with donuts.
Okay.
Um, since I was a kid, man, I love donuts, and my managers knew about my donut craze. Like they have been with me when I'll eat like 6 to 7 donuts in a sitting. It's just disgusting, and and so one morning we were on Zoom and we were talking about, like the record was coming into fruition and they were kind of like, okay, let's think about like marketing. Like, how can we market this record without, you know, only talking about the same thing over and over again? And I was eating a donut and my manager was like, what if you had like a donut pop-up shop? And I was like, oh, that's so stupid. We could call it Golden Boy Donuts. And they were like, oh, that's so funny that there's no way that would ever happen. And then he just was like, you know what? I'm gonna dig around on this. And he sent Grubhub a cold email. And then they respond and they were like, we love this. We're trying to get into the music space. Like we love music. We're passionate about it. We've never done anything like this. So like, let's go. And
Wow.
they have been like so supportive of it. They've been very, very helpful and like have really rolled out on this concept. And so basically for the next 6 months, on Grubhub in like, I think 50 different cities throughout the country. You can go on there and order Goldenboy donuts, and each donut is named after a song on the record, and it's so ridiculous and hilarious that it actually exists. And so yeah, I totally agree. Like when I announced that, and like all of the marketing that's gone around Goldenboy donuts has been so fun and so goofy, and so but it's
Yeah, I was like, when you're telling me like this deep story, I was like, wow, like, and then I'm like, but he did this donut shop, like
no, I
that.
know, and it's been such a fun thing, one, to let people into like, parts of my personality that they probably
Mhm.
haven't got to see. And then also it's been really fun to be able to talk about the record without just talking about music all the time, and people being like, come on, man, we get it. You make music. This is another thing. I'm just like, however, there's this other thing that I love other than music, and it's donuts. And yeah, it's been really fun, man.
Did you you got to, I'm sure, choose what donut was for each song in the
Oh yeah.
record, and
Oh
you
yeah.
you just choose your favorites, or like
I
how did
did.
was
Yeah.
it hard to narrow that down? I mean, you only had what, like 5 or 6 donuts?
Yeah, it was hard. Yeah. I think the whole menu is like 8 or 9 donuts, I think.
Oh wow, you got okay.
Yeah. And and so I wanted to make sure, because I don't have like a brick and mortar store, like I wanted to make sure that every donut shop that would be partnering with us would have access to this kind of donut. So I tried to pick, staples. Uh,
Okay.
but man, it was so fun. I had a blast uh, writing the menu for it. And what was funny is I was writing this menu just trying to like make my managers laugh. And I was just goofing around. And then uh, they sent it to Forbes magazine, who did a write-up on it, which was incredible. But they
Oh.
didn't tell me they were putting the menu in the article. And so I look, and on freaking Forbes magazine, my stupid menu made it on the article, and it's like just me being an idiot. And I was just like, I would never in my wildest dreams would have imagined this was going to end up in Forbes.
That's so good. I love that. And then you have one in your
I'll miss
hometown,
you.
Rick's Bakery. Is that a spot you used to
I
go
do.
to
Yeah.
quite frequently?
Oh, dude, Rick's is the spot. Shout out Rick's Bakery. That is my favorite donut shop on the planet to this day. They're the birthplace of my obsession.
I love that. And then there's one here in Nashville too, I saw. So I'm gonna have to try that place.
Oh yeah.
Fox Donut Den. I haven't been, but my
Yes.
wife is a huge advocate for donuts. So I'm sure we're
Go.
new to town. So
Go. You
I
gotta
think
try it.
we found a spot. We'll have to hit it up, especially try some of your donuts. I love
Yeah.
it.
Come on. Get a sticker with my face on it. It's gonna be great.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. And what about like, I mean, you said you got to tour in 2020, but
Yeah. Yes.
things closed down obviously, and now stuff is opening up again. Do you have any plans to tour this new EP? Like, what do you have
Yeah.
anything in the works?
Yeah, definitely big things in the works, which are gonna get announced very soon.
Cool.
But looks like January 22 is I'm gonna have a nationwide tour, because I was supposed to go out in September of 2021, but my wife and I are having our first daughter.
I did see that. When I was creeping on your Instagram. I did see that. Congratulations.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
yeah, man, we're so excited and getting ready for her to be here end of August. So obviously, with a brand new baby, it's not going to be the best time for me to hit the road. So we pushed it back.
Probably not.
Pushed it back a few months, and so I'm hitting the road January of 2022, and I'm going everywhere.
I love it. I cannot wait. Are you gonna bring the fam, or is she gonna be
Yeah,
too
yeah.
small? Oh, okay.
I think we're gonna, obviously this is our first child, so we're gonna figure out, how that all works. We're not gonna try to be too optimistic, but I think what we're looking at right now is Rachel and the baby are gonna come out for as much of it as they can.
I love that. That's so cool.
Pretty blessed.
Yeah, I've 2 kids of myself, and I love bringing them to stuff like work
Yeah.
event. And when I was in radio for a long time, bringing them up on the stage and stuff, they
Yeah, man.
always got a
Like,
kick of it.
gonna be well-traveled kids.
Sure. That's amazing. And thank you so much, Jake, for doing this, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. This is awesome.
I do have one more question for you before I let you go. Do you have any advice for aspiring artists?
Ooh. Take the pressure off. Don't be so precious about each thing being perfect, because you're never going to be perfect and nothing you make is going to be perfect. But it could really resonate with some people. So don't put so much pressure on each song to be the thing that's going to change your life. Just put it out. And if it's good enough, people will listen. And luckily, you can write another song tomorrow. So keep going and just take the pressure off yourself. Have fun with it.